What happens after we die? For centuries, that question was left to philosophers and priests. But what if we could look at it a little differently? Today, we are diving into a really fascinating and, yeah, for some, a pretty controversial source that's been gathering what it calls evidence for over 25 years.
It's the ultimate question, isn't it? It's something that has puzzled, well, pretty much every human who's ever lived. Is that final moment really the end of the line? Or could it just be the beginning of a new chapter? So, our guide for this journey is the Friday Afterlife Report. And for more than a quarter of a century, this thing has been a unique kind of archive. It's been collecting everything you can think of, personal stories, recordings from mediums, even scientific studies, all of it pointing to one central idea, that our consciousness keeps going after we die. So let's take a look at the world it describes.
All right, so what does the report say the actual moment of dying feels like? Let's get right into some of the first-hand accounts that it presents.
This first one here, from a man named Mike Swain, really challenges that idea of a scary end. He describes his transition not as an ending at all, but as a reunion. I mean, just imagine being greeted by the people you've missed the most, and in that moment of pure joy, you only realize you've passed on when you happen to glance back at your physical body. That's the picture being painted here. And according to the report, this feeling of peace isn't just for adults. It shares this incredible story of a 9-year-old boy, Russell, who told his mom not about being scared, but about seeing beautiful figures and a shining light. They were there, he said, to reassure him that he wouldn't be alone. The source actually gives these experiences a name, deathbed visions. And by putting a label on it, the report is arguing that these aren't just random, isolated stories from today. It points to documents of similar visions that go back for centuries, which suggests there's a really consistent pattern of experience right there at the edge of death. And this brings us to a huge theme you find all through the report's material on near-death experiences, or NDEs. This account from Arthur Jensen just captures it so perfectly. The feeling isn't about arriving in some strange new place. It's a profound sense of homecoming. The idea that Earth was actually the foreign land, and this is where you've always belonged.
Okay, so the report lays out these incredibly powerful personal stories, but it definitely doesn't stop there. This next section dives into what it presents as more objective, maybe even verifiable evidence of communication from the other side.
A huge piece of this evidence is something called direct voice mediumship. Now, the idea here is that voices from the spirit world can speak out loud on their own without actually using the medium's voice box. The report really focuses on a medium named Leslie Flint, who has hundreds of recordings of these alleged independent voices.
And listen to this. This is a direct quote from one of those recordings, said to be from a man named George Olson. The report holds this up as unfiltered testimony from someone actually on the other side. And the tone? It's so surprisingly upbeat, so enthusiastic, which is actually a super consistent message in these supposed communications.
Now, this is where the report really tries to bridge that gap between personal stories and hard data. It highlights several studies that actually tried to apply scientific methods to these claims, to really put them to the test under controlled conditions.
Okay, so let's look at this one experiment with a medium named Elwood Babbitt. When he was in a normal state, an EEG machine, the thing that measures brainwaves, showed a totally typical adult male pattern. But then when he went into a trance, claiming to channel different spirits, the machine recorded 3 completely different brainwave patterns. The experts cited in the report basically said these patterns were so distinct, there's no way they could have come from the same person. The report also points to something called the PRISM study. This was a 5-year investigation into mediums, and it was done under triple-blind conditions. That means the medium, the person running the experiment, and the person grading the results had no idea who the reading was for. It was all designed to eliminate any possible cheating or bias. And the study's conclusion, which the report loves to highlight, was that the odds of a medium getting such specific, accurate information just by pure luck were a staggering 1 million to 1.
So how does the report explain how this communication even works? It actually uses a pretty simple analogy: a radio. The idea is that our physical world and the spirit world just exist on different frequencies or vibrations. So for contact to happen, both sides have to tune their dials. We need to raise our frequency, and they need to lower theirs until you meet somewhere in the middle.
Okay, so if we take all of these accounts and messages and experiments that the report presents, what kind of picture does it actually paint of the destination itself?
What is it like?
Across all these different accounts, a really consistent description starts to emerge. It's a place of reunion, where families are back together and friendships are picked right back up. The body is described as feeling totally healthy, solid, but also light. And you keep all your memories, your whole identity. And the overwhelming feeling is just this profound sense of peace and joy.
So this leads to a pretty big question. If it's so great over there, why are we here on Earth in the first place? The report brings up a concept from an author named William Bowman, that Earth is a school for souls. The idea is that a physical world where our actions have consequences that are kind of delayed is the perfect training ground for us to learn and grow. Because in a place where your thoughts instantly become real, our messy, undisciplined minds could cause a lot of chaos. Here, we can learn through trial and error.
And building on that school idea, the source suggests we aren't just thrown in here randomly. A lot of the accounts claim that we actually help create a life plan before we're even born, that we choose our specific challenges and hardships so we can develop the qualities we need for our spiritual growth.
Okay, let's get to the most important part. Why does any of this matter? According to the report, what is the whole point of sharing all this information?
So, what's the end game here, according to the source? It really boils down to three big things. First, by framing death as a peaceful natural transition, it wants to reduce our fear of it. Second, for anyone who's grieving, it offers the comfort that the people we've lost are safe and that we'll see them again. And finally, based on all these accounts of life reviews, it encourages us to live a kinder life, suggesting that our small, selfless acts of kindness are what really count in the end.
And this quote, which is featured in the report, just hammers that last point home. It totally reframes how we think about the world. It's not just about competition and being the strongest. It's about connection and partnership and kindness as a fundamental force of the universe. And ultimately, every single thing we've talked about today ties right back to the mission statement you see on every issue of the Friday Afterlife Report. The goal isn't just to present a bunch of facts. It's to provide a sense of hope, a sense of purpose, and real comfort when we're facing life's two biggest challenges, loss and our own death.
And so we end with this question, which is really the central challenge that all of this source material poses. I mean, forget for a second what you believe or don't believe. Just as a thought experiment, it's pretty powerful. If you knew, for a fact, that this life was just a temporary school and that death was a graduation, what would you do differently, starting right now?